The Eric McKenna project was formed in March of 2019 by Pittsburgher Eric McKenna. The project is free-form and unscripted, with discussions that are unvarnished and purely authentic. Additionally, each engagement is professionally filmed and recorded at Eric's Boogie Street studio, located in Moon Township, Pennsylvania. Guests are by invitation only and come from all walks of life. Discussion topics include business and entrepreneurship, science, art, music and film, comedy, and other entertainment disciplines. Eric's biography includes Pittsburgh Realty agent, radio broadcaster, speaker, and guitarist. Additionally, Eric is the founder of Boogie Street Guitars, a guitar design and marketing firm which has worked with most notably Dimebag Darrell and Kiss legend Paul Stanley. Since 2023, the Eric McKenna Project podcast is exclusively presented by the Cozza Law Group, Pittsburgh's premier business attorneys.
Oh, nothing ominous about that, right?
No papers for you to throw around the room.
Well, I didn't decide to. Although I could throw some other stuff around the room.
There's a lot of stuff in this room.
So, yeah, I got the weapon on this side just in case he gets a little unruly. You know those Mulligans are a little.
You might need it.
What's been on your cranium recently, pal?
Ah, jeez. Put me on
There's
the spot.
There's an open-ended question.
You put me on the spot already.
It's an open-ended question. I had to get a lot of caffeine for you this morning. See?
It's just to match the energy level.
Uh-huh.
I promise I'll stay in the chair. Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
I've been watching a lot of interesting reels. I probably spend too much time on social media. But I've been watching a lot of interesting reels about simulation theory. And I find it real interesting because, you know, this is stuff that I've it's been like a pet hobby of mine for a long time, like the nature of truth and reality and stuff like that. I'm sure that's bled into the shows that I've been on. But now the scientific community is turning towards these questions and turning towards this viewpoint, you know, about the nature of reality. And I guess science has always been concerned with that, but it's pivoting, you know what I mean? Now,
Why? Why do you think that is?
Quantum theory and other advanced scientific theories, you know, the double slit experiment, the idea that we don't really understand the nature of this world that we're living in.
Mm-hmm. The particle and wave thing.
Yeah.
Photons.
Well, the idea that this reality, we're just diving right in, this is going to be something.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm just saying that experiment basically was the nature of that photon changes whether it's being observed or not. And depending on who observes it.
Right.
Yeah. And so that is so, what did Einstein say? It was like spooky action or something. It didn't fit the standard laws of physics.
Yeah. I don't think he liked quantum theory.
No, he did not.
He found it very problematic.
Yeah, he used the word spooky, that's all I know, and he was mocked.
I think
for
you're
that.
right. I think spooky action was
something with spooky action or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, and I just, I don't know, I find it very interesting that credible individuals, you know, intelligent, educated individuals are now, you know, posing this age-old question, because it goes all the way back. You know, people watch The Matrix and they thought this was this groundbreaking idea that our reality isn't necessarily the way we perceive it, and it really goes back. I mean, you can trace it as far back to I think it's Plato, the cave.
Mm-hmm.
He posed
the shadow.
Yes, the idea that if you were stuck in a cave and you were bound in some way, and the only thing you ever saw was this wall on the cave, and there was a fire behind you, and all you could see were shadows and voices, and that was your entire world. Those were the people you knew. How would you ever know that there was a world outside the cave? So it's an age-old question, and I think it's been one that's more been embraced by hippies and drug culture people and philosophers.
Because it was esoteric, right? or metaphysical.
Metaphysical, yeah. So hippies and philosophers and people of that vein, and now you've got well-respected mathematicians, scientists, and they're looking around and basically saying the same thing. You know, the world around us isn't exactly what we thought it was. They're calling it a projection now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not solid. It's not, you know, the whole...
It's 2D.
Yeah, the whole idea, you know, the Newtonian model is kind of getting thrown out the window. It still applies, but the deeper they look, the more they realize that it's all kind of flipped upside down, and there's a lot of paradoxes.
Don't you find it fascinating too? They found nothing or no way yet to marry the Newtonian model with quantum physics.
Yeah. I guess when you're stuck inside, I guess we'll call it the simulation, you have to play by the rules. But when you start theoretically looking at it from outside, none of those rules apply. Mm-hmm. And I just find it interesting because now people they're immediately jumping to the conclusion that we're either an alien's kid's toy or some advanced civilization kind of made us up and wrote our code and there's nothing real to us. And I don't know. For one, I find it interesting that, there's the idea that our reality is just code. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I mentioned the crossover between counterculture individuals, some of whom experiment with mind-altering substances, and credible, reputable scientists.
As we know it.
And I'm watching a lot of reels about the DMT, the ayahuasca. Rogan's real into that. And there was this experiment that I can't remember his name, but he basically shone a laser. He put a high-intensity laser on a wall and gave people DMT, consensually. And they stared at the wall, at the laser, and they started this. And this is apparently, according to his work, it's very repeatable. They look and they all say, oh my God, it's code. They say that you can actually look and you're looking through the wall and seeing the code.
Okay, so I forget his last name. He's a famous theoretical physicist because there's probably a collection of like 20 or 30 rock star theoretical physicists that make the circles,
all the journals and stuff.
Yeah, the journals or the video presentations, the networks.
Yeah,
James it'll come to me. He was on a program about 10 years ago, and he said that when he drilled down with his science, he found computer code from the early 70s.
Wow,
baked into reality.
Yeah,
and just freaked everybody out. And he's now known for that theory, and I don't know I'm sure it's been contested because that's what they do in that world, but he said it's interesting that it's like a 50-year-old computer code that we've already kind of cycled through already in our human experience.
Right,
it was in there.
Right. Yeah, and immediately people are jumping to the Matrix theory that it's either us in the future who have simulated us back in the past, or
but what do you think?
I don't know. I think I have more questions than answers, but I find it interesting that, and I'm not advocating for this theory necessarily, but I just find it interesting that we find evidence that our reality has been designed and it's not a random consequence of the universe like so many scientists pose before us. And nobody says...
Unwind that for people that are listening.
Just the idea that, okay, the world is shaped through cause and effect and natural forces and energy playing against energy, entropy in the universe and all that stuff. Basically, the old scientific model. Mm-hmm. And for years, you had people saying, no, an intelligent being designed all this.
Right.
And scientific community just shut it down.
That's where religion crashes in. Theoretically, right. What we call religion crashes in.
And I find it interesting that now science finds evidence that our world may be created and designed. And nobody in the scientific community said, well, maybe that's intelligent design. All of them just jumped to, oh, well, I guess we're part of a computer simulation with some advanced alien race that's basically got us on, we're Sims for aliens.
Yeah, they didn't want to go right to the religious. They still wanted to have another explanation.
But it should be part of the conversation, in my opinion. And I don't see it anywhere part of the conversation because I was reading more and studying more and grasping this simulation theory. And not once did I ever hear somebody say, well, maybe this is the way we observe intelligent design. No, it's aliens.
Because it's easy. It's right?
I mean, think, ironically, it's less scary to some people.
Oh, really? You think?
Yeah. God's a scary idea. I think God's
I never looked at it like that.
Very scary idea.
I never looked at it like that.
We take God in small doses. Hour and a half on Sunday. At night, 2 minutes, I'm going to say my little prayers. At a funeral, when we want to send somebody off. Just a reminder, there's a
when
light.
we want something really bad.
Right. But we take God in small doses, those of us who do indulge.
Yeah.
Because God's a scary idea.
Huh.
And I'm not advocating for that. Maybe it is a simulation. Maybe we are just playthings in an advanced society simulation. I don't know. I think, like I said, I have a lot more questions than answers. But I find it real interesting because it's something that I have been interested in for a long time. And it was almost like a habit that I kept secret from people, you know what I mean? Because people don't want you like throwing a bunch of crazy shit out on the table. I remember Julie ran into somebody that we hadn't seen in a while, and back from my partying days, and they're like, "Yeah, Jerry, man," and all the mystical shit. It's just like, well, if that's how I'm remembered, then it's a life well lived.
Agreed. Well, you're always asking the question, right? I mean, there's people in society that just go with the assumption that reality is what they see and observe, and they have no further interest. Then there's half the society. I don't know if it's half, but there's a portion of society that questions everything. And to me, it's like, if I'm not questioning things, then why even be alive?
Yeah.
To me, that's just how I'm wired. I'm not saying that's for everybody.
Sure.
But I think you get that.
Yeah, I do. And I'm just not satisfied saying, hey, I wake up every day, I go to a job, I earn my paycheck, I take care of the people that I need to take care of. Like, that is important. That's why I don't disparage anybody. Like you said, some people, they're just not interested in all this crazy shit. And I can't blame them because...
But is it crazy, though?
Well, that's the thing. It's becoming less and less crazy. It's becoming more and more mainstream. But it's not putting any money in my pocket either. There's still responsibilities to keep up with, I don't necessarily disparage anybody who just says, you know what, I don't usually spend a lot of time thinking about that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But to me, that whole question is horrifying, and it has been for as long as I have spent time thinking about it, probably my early 20s. And to me, I don't want to go too deep sometimes because it's... To me, it can rock the foundation of what I consider to be normal if I go too deep in there. And that for me, for the way I'm wired, is very unsettling.
Sure. Yeah. Because I think the more that we consider questions like these, the more self-reflection is involved, Because if science just basically looked at reality and said, we have no idea what it is, but it's probably not what we thought it was, and we're all part of this world together, we have to consider our place within the world. And it might be kind of depressing just to say, look, you're born, you go to school, you do your family thing, or you don't, you get a job, you find a way to get by, you do that for a while, and then you die. That's depressing to some people, but some people, they look at that like it's realism, not cynicism. However, whichever way you want to look at it, that is much easier to grasp and to handle and to at least get familiar and comfortable with, rather than, hey, we don't know what any of this is or what it means. Like, we might be a fever dream.
Someone else's dream.
Yeah, exactly. Or someone else's simulation. The idea that we can't necessarily say with any real certainty that any of this is what we thought of as real.
So on some of the shows that you've been on, we've talked about consequences of... We just look at the alien thing and the consequences to society if aliens are normalized, the theory of aliens. And I don't know if we've ever gone this deep, but I want to ask you, do you think that our governments collectively or not collectively know that we're not alone? And do you think that the reason why the public's not been informed is because there would be a breakdown of the tenets of decency within our society if it was to be known, because the idea of religion for some may fly out the window?
That's a big question.
There's multiple pieces of that.
That's a big question. The thing that popped into my head was that, we're seeing interviews now where they're talking more a lot about interdimensional beings rather than extraterrestrial beings. Now, do I think it's likely that there's
well, how's that different? In theory, how's that really different from the concept of an alien?
I guess in some ways it's not that different, but an extraterrestrial would be in this physical plane coming at us from another solar system.
In our timeline.
in our timeline, in our same
universe,
space-time continuum, so to speak. But an interdimensional being could be sitting here in the room with us right now, and we would not have awareness. Okay. And I believe, I really need to dig in and do a lot more credible research, because when you see things on the internet nowadays in the age of AI, you have no idea. But I know there is a congressperson who's been talking about us being in contact with interdimensional beings.
I think she just was on Rogan, I think.
Yeah, I think Julie told me that. I should watch that episode. Yeah. And, you've got... I've seen interviews with people who had something to do with CERN. It's been a recent revelation. Basically, we are in contact with interdimensional beings, with beings from another dimension. And it's funny. I don't know. The Art Bell show? Mm-hmm. Did you ever?
I remember. I used to lay it at night and listen as a kid.
Did you ever? If you haven't, you should Google it. The Area 51 call. Okay.
Vaguely. The Time Traveler was the big one. Remember that one?
No. I honestly never. I mean, I've heard segments, but I didn't used to listen to the show. I'm going to take you on a little side quest with music, and it's going to be fun.
Good.
So you listen to Tool at all? Mm-hmm. I can't remember which album. I want to say it was Lateralis.
Okay.
They had this wicked, and this is before I knew anything about that Art Bell call and the guy who was supposedly on the run from the government.
All right.
They have this wicked drum solo and all these flickering sounds. It sounds like frequencies going off. And then they play that call. And they don't play Art Bell's voice leading him and doing the other part of the interview. It's just this guy's voice, and he sounds scared shitless. And I was like, man, Tool's a wild band, but I don't know if you could get somebody like... I feel like I'm okay in the studio, and if you asked me to sound that genuine and that scared and just record that for a track, I don't think I could do it. I don't know if anybody could do it.
I gotta look this up.
And I dug into it, and they took it from the Art Bell show, and he's basically, this guy's on the run. He called about Area 51, and he says, okay, what we're thinking about as aliens, they're actually interdimensional beings that an earlier precursor of our space program made contact with. He says they are not what they claim to be. They've infiltrated a lot of the government, including Area 51. He alludes to a huge catastrophe that's coming, and he's saying they could easily be moving people out of the larger population centers, but not. Basically, he's saying that they are invading and subjugating, and he says they're going to triangulate my position very soon. I don't have long. And all of a sudden, he just cuts off. Feel free to fact check me on this, but Art Bell's show, because you can hear Art Bell when you go and listen to both. The one that Tool put out is very cool, but if you want to listen to the original with Art Bell on it, after that he hops back on and he says we just got booted off the satellite somehow. It's never happened in all the time. They went to a backup tape, and his show got knocked off the satellite. It was I think it was 10-15 minutes they were trying to get the show back online.
Now that's horrific.
Yeah. So if you ask me honestly, I'm a little more interested in the idea that we're in touch with interdimensional beings and what that could possibly mean. I mean, does the government know? Apparently so, because we've got people talking about it openly in interviews now.
So when you think of an interdimensional being, give me a layman's description of what that would quote unquote look like, or what the experience would be for an average person encountering something like that.
I honestly have no idea. But, like I said, it's the difference between like an alien, if an alien in theory, unless they had some kind of wild technology where they could cloak themselves, came in the door right now, we're in the same space-time continuum. We're in the same reality.
Like for physics, as we know it, that thing is there. Like
it's
you reach
as real
out,
as you
touch
or I.
it, right.
Whereas an interdimensional being, we don't know. Like, I'm not able to cognize that. I can't even throw.
So we could be surrounded by them right now.
Yeah.
We have no idea.
And they're doing more and more experiments, and they're finding out that we have. I don't even know. It's something ridiculous. Like, I think the recent experiment they did, how many quantum states? There was like 20-some dimensions that this
34
that this electron existed in. Or was it a proton? I don't know. I'm not good on the...
Did you see that experiment they did 10 years ago where they commingled, I guess, 2 protons, and they separated them by hundreds of miles?
The entanglement?
the entanglement
Yeah.
remained
Yeah.
polar opposite.
Right.
That's how they're commingled.
Yeah.
And the distance didn't matter.
I think that's exactly what Einstein was talking about. He was talking about quantum entanglement when he used that term, spooky action.
Spooky action at a distance, I think was the phrase
Okay.
I think he used, I think.
Yeah, I don't even know what to think about that. Other than I think it points to the idea that everything is connected. You know, everything in our universe is connected to everything else.
Well, doesn't it seem really interesting, this one little tidbit, that the shape of atoms is roughly, generally circular. The very small is the same shape as the very large.
Yeah.
If that isn't a tell of something,
Yeah.
I don't know what is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of the I'm digging deep. I was telling you earlier that watched a documentary on quantum theory years ago, probably 7 or 8, maybe 10 years ago, called What the Bleep Do We Know? They don't throw a bunch of math equations at you.
Yeah.
It's they break it down for you. They put it in terms that you can understand. And a lot of it is the wave particle duality theory. But there's also what they call the holographic universe theory.
Yeah, let's get into that.
The idea that basically, I think now they're more talking about it like a projection rather than a hologram,
Like
but it's
a
kind of
smear
the same
on the
thing.
black hole.
Yeah. I'm not sure. But the idea that our entire reality is a projection, it's not solid like we thought it was. In What the Bleep Do We Know? I think they call it the holographic universe theory. And there was some part of that, what you said kind of triggered it, about the very small being like the very large. I guess in a hologram, the entire picture or whatever it is, the image, the entire 3D image is contained within each tiny piece of it. And there's, they're talking about how there's information encoded into reality itself, into water.
Oh, I definitely believe that.
I've seen a lot of experiments with different frequencies, different sound frequencies, where they're making different pictures in the water drops, and that was in What the Bleep Do We Know as well. They said very loving, nurturing things in the presence of water, and then froze it and created these beautiful patterns. And then it's like Ghostbusters 2. Do you remember?
Yes, I do.
It's like the slime, and they're talking all this, you disgusting, arrogant blob. And it got all mean, and they did that with the water, and when they crystallized it, it was like very jagged and rigid. There was no like discernible pattern to it.
I think that I've always thought that was possible, because I just take it when you yell at a dog. A dog is why does a dog have that emotion to it?
Yeah.
And why do animals in general? A verbal attack on an animal will yield a emotion very similar to how a human would react.
Well, take it with a grain of salt, but I think a lot of animals are more human than people nowadays.
You're living in 2025, man.
Right.
How could you not, right? I just think, Brian Greene put out a lot of documentaries in the past 20 years. He's a theoretical rock star physicist, but a good guy. He's put a lot out for PBS, a lot, and that's where I got my idea about quantum physics, because he was breaking it down. But it's funny when they break it down, the things he's saying, like he was using a pool table, and he was saying, so I hit this pool table ball, and it looks like it's hitting the 1 ball, or the 2 ball is hitting the 9 ball, and the 9 ball is hitting the 11 ball, but really the opposite of that's happening. And it's all happening simultaneously in multiple planes. And it just, even in the simplest way to break it down, it's still hard for a layman, like us, to grasp the insanity of it. It's insane. Yeah. It's not logical at all.
No.
So how are we supposed to... So if we assume that what they're saying is right, then anything that I can think in my head, that there's like these green beings over here, I can imagine them, but I can't see them, and they're just sitting there, and they're just like hanging around. How is that any... how can you disqualify that crazy concept than the bullshit they're trying to tell us is factual?
I don't think that you can. And like I said, if we can listen to the individuals who are now speaking out, they've been in touch with these entities for a long time. And it's like anything else. I mean, could be good, could be bad, could be a mix of both. I don't know. I've been watching a lot of reels about people who have experiences on DMT, and there's a lot of similarities there. They talk to entities. The entities are really similar. These are people from all over the world, didn't know each other, had their own experiences.
But having the same type of experience.
Most people, and for anybody who doesn't know, DMT, I think it comes from ayahuasca. And if you do the recommended dosage, it's not like smoking a doob and the colors are vibrant. You go to another place, you can't see the room around you. I think you fall back and you're just like literally out. And overwhelmingly, the people who have these experiences say, I knew right away this wasn't something that was fabricated in my own imagination. And they have a lot of similarities. Like, have you read about the Clockwork Elves? They're like these self-evolving like robots that look almost like little elves. People have repeatedly seen those. The Tool album art with the faces that all kind of bleed into themselves, and it looks like there's an infinity pattern in there somewhere. A lot of people see things like that. And it's being described by a lot of people who have these experiences that you're just kind of like receiving almost like a download. And they said, I could never put it into words for you, but it's eye-opening. And
they're all having similar experiences.
A lot of them, yes. Yeah, there's different experiences, but there is a lot of continuity between them. And hey, 10 years ago, it would be easy for a skeptic to be like, you're just a drugged out loser. You just saw visions in your head. And now scientists are saying we're in touch with interdimensional beings, and drug heads, I shouldn't call them drug heads, mind expanding drug users are saying, hey, we're in touch with interdimensional beings. You know what I mean? There's this weird crossover between a counterculture and between credible scientific individuals.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. So this is why I feel like we are living definitely in a simulation, and our experience for as long as we're here on this earth is planned and orchestrated, because we had a global event like we've never had. And during the recovery of this global event, when our minds and where our attention was elsewhere, the powers that be unleashed the concept of aliens and unleashed the concept of interdimensional beings. And there's so much of this, and the merging all of a sudden of the the metaphysical with science. It's all happening during this recovery period, while we're probably even now not paying as much attention that we would have been in 2019.
We don't pay attention. Unless it makes the major news cycles, we just don't pay attention. I mean, that was huge. You know what I mean? For the longest time, everyone's been wondering, are we alone in the universe? And they didn't exactly say aliens, but they said artificial, or what would it be considered?
Artificial intelligence?
No, just vehicles that are not from...
yeah.
It's not us. It's not anything that we've created. So that...
What do they call them now? UAPs or whatever?
Yeah. I almost said UAV, but that's different.
It's UAP.
That's a drone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it happened during a time where we were almost forced to look elsewhere.
Yeah, but if CNN and Fox News had picked this up and they'd been debating it back and forth, and there was a big tug of war...
Before the pandemic.
Or during. If a major news... If corporate news, that's what I call it, the corporate news.
For sure.
If a major news outlet like cable news had picked up this story and said, breaking news, we're not alone in the universe, it'd be all anybody was even talking about. And they'd be arguing about it, and they'd be debating it, and they'd be going back and forth about it. But if it comes more directly from the source and goes out on the internet, if it doesn't get any traction, you know what I mean? If it's not picked up, unless it goes viral, like the whole Epstein thing, we're just not interested.
Okay, so let's do a right turn then. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on what we're permitted to put our attention on and what we're not? Like, who is calling that? Because based on the example you just gave, it seems like either a person or a group of people, because I can't believe it's purely organic. I just don't decide what the media as a whole bounces around and gives airs of legitimacy to in our attention spans, and what just sails over with a blip. It seems orchestrated to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but
No.
it seems orchestrated to me.
Believe me, I get where you're coming from. I think a lot of people have a big problem with the idea of conspiracy theories because it's just too big. How could you keep a secret that big? You know, the idea that there's these card-carrying members of this elite society that's hidden within our society, this deep state that's controlling and manufacturing all our experiences and manipulating us from outside and within. The idea that something that big is going on and it's not being reported by the news, that it's not being talked about by credible individuals who are recognizable by the average person. You know what I mean? People look for that. It's branding. You know what I mean? They want to see Channel 11 next to that, Fox News, CNN, whatever, MSNBC, whatever your favorite news station is. You know what I mean? It's got to be, the whole idea behind news is that it's credible. You know what I mean? But there are gatekeepers, and a lot of stuff just doesn't make it into the news cycle. Now, I kind of have my own way of looking at it, because I do believe, if you don't believe, let's go that direction. If you don't believe that people who are wealthy, and I mean really wealthy, you know, not a cardigan and a yacht, I mean the kind of wealth where you don't even want people talking about how much money you really have and how much wealth you've amassed, how much power and influence you have, because we all know that they do. I mean, go get a speeding ticket, see if you can get it fixed. Maybe you have a judge friend, you know what I mean? But the kind of things that they are able to fix, it's the way the world works. We all know that, unless you're completely naive.
Yes.
You understand.
I thoroughly agree with you.
You know, it's not just the haves and the have-nots. It's the people who are in power and the people who are subject to power.
Correct.
But if you don't believe that they're trying to hang on to that, wouldn't you? I would. If I had that much influence, if I had that much wealth, if I was that kind of a frickin' rock star on this planet, yeah, I'd do anything I could to hang on to that. Now, I don't want to put myself in those shoes because I have no idea what it would be like to live that kind of life. But if you don't think they're using their power and their influence and their wealth to maintain their position, we talk about the establishment, you know what I mean? Those who are trying to protect the establishment, those who are trying to uproot the establishment. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just
the way it is.
It's money and it's power and it's influence. And you either have it or you don't. And you have it to varying degrees. So when you look at how many degrees up or involved someone might be, you know, their network of people, the friends that they have, the social circle that they have, the professional associates that they have. I kind of look at it like, you know, people are like, oh, well, they can't make me do anything. How would they manipulate me into doing what they want me to do? There's nobody standing behind me with a gun to my head. I almost look at it like a petri dish. You have, say, a bacterial civilization that's growing inside this petri dish, right? Mm-hmm. And you're the scientist. Now, can you get in there, right, on the micro level and decide, okay, I'm going to make this one do that. It's organic. It grows. It's life. It grows on its own. You know what I mean? But you can add a certain element or a certain chemical, you know what I mean, a certain protein. I'm not a chemist, so I'm just kind of taking a shot in the dark here. You can add something to that petri dish. And after a while, you start to develop a model for how to make it develop in the way that you want it to develop for your experiment or whatever you have. So when we talk about these elites, whoever it is, the behind the curtain people, number one, I don't think it necessarily works like that. I think it's just the way the world works. Do I believe that there are secret societies that meet behind closed doors and talk about important things that decide?
Well, I think we know that. Bilderberg and the rest of them. I mean, the public knows of the face of it anyway.
Some people are just very skeptical. I look at it more like, you know, we're in the petri dish. There are some individuals who are outside the petri dish.
Yeah. And
they've got medicine droppers. And they're dropping.
Like it's not a big experiment.
Yeah, an experiment.
They don't really know what's going to happen, but they think that, oh, well, we doing this because this worked last time.
Well, usually if you have an experiment, there's some point behind it. There's some question you want to answer, or you're trying
There's a goal.
You're trying to engineer it in some way. And I think they're getting better and better at it because we just said, like, we've been conditioned in some way so that some of the biggest news in the history of our time.
Of mankind.
We're probably not alone in the universe. We're telling you that we know this.
Officially.
And everybody's just like, huh? Who won American Idol?
Exactly right.
Yeah. We've just been conditioned.
Scares the hell out of me.
But here's the real thing. We do it to ourselves and we do it to each other. You know what I mean? Just by the look that you give somebody when they start dropping some stuff and saying,
we're quick to label each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very much so.
We police ourselves and each other.
And they probably know that.
Yeah. It's perfect. It's a perfect system. We are afraid to be looked at as different, as weird, as outside the norm. And it's not just about conspiracies and stuff like that. It's everything. Our mores, our folkways. The unassigned language, the unwritten rules, the invisible framework of society itself is policed by every single person and is inflicted and imposed on other people. And we also inflict and impose it upon ourselves.
It's self-policed.
Yeah. Now, have there been steps along the way? Absolutely. I think they monkeyed around with the education system, and it's another thing I believe has been documented. I can't remember, was it Rockefeller who said, "I want a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers"?
Mm-hmm. I think it was Rockefeller. One of the.
Was it Rothschild?
One of the industry barons from the early 1900s, I think it was. Maybe it was him. Yeah, it's a very famous statement.
Yeah. You just want people to work in their factories. You want them to go home at the end of the day. You want them not to question
to
why.
To be content.
Why do a few have so very, very, very much? And
we wanted the masses to be dependent on a few.
Yeah.
For their existence.
Yeah. Because it's safer.
So is the illusion of free enterprise in as part of the capitalistic nature of America, is that all just a ruse?
I don't think so. No. It's just that things are kind of tipped the way that they're tipped. I look at it like free-range chickens. That's another theory that I've come across when I was reading. They found out that they produce more if they're not penned in little cages. You know what I mean? So they get to run around. They're not going anywhere, but they get to move around. They're not taking it to the highway. They're not going to escape. You know what I mean? You're not going to lose your asset, but they get to move around and they produce more.
And they're more productive.
That's free nations like the United States of America. I don't think it used to be like that. I don't think it used to be like that at all. But the thing is, here's the thing. We're pretty fucking unpredictable. Human beings,
That's all we got left, buddy.
We're very unpredictable.
That might be all we have left.
Very unpredictable. I'm not a huge history buff, but look at how many empires, how many great dynasties of power and influence have risen throughout history and then crumbled again. And they destabilize. The empire gets too big. Things start to fall apart from within. So I think nowadays, if you wanted to really not control what I have for breakfast, what I have for dinner, but to instill in the populace that things are okay the way that they are, and they don't need to change, you would do it in secret. You would not do it through whips and chains and the Inquisition and starving people out and making them lick your boot. You would do it in silence. You would do it in secret. You would do it in a very gentle way that went
subtly,
unobserved. Because if you boil a frog slowly, the frog will stay right in the pot. If you throw a frog into boiling water, the frog's going to jump right back out again. Look at the level of surveillance that we deal with. And we all know it. We laugh. My FBI agent's looking at that text going, what the fuck is wrong with that person? You know what I mean? Like, it made it into memes. It's part of popular culture now. We laugh about it.
Well, we went to it under the guise of, if I'm not mistaken, we really started to succumb to it in a big way after 9/11.
Yeah.
Under the guise of safety.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
But look at what the idea that someone might be listening to my phone calls, the idea that someone could be looking into my home. I can't remember what technology it is. I know we talked about it on a prior show where they are able to create a model and basically see right through everything. I think it's through your Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain technology because the Wi-Fi
the AI
signals
builds a model of the
bounces
home.
off different objects, and they can look right through. You're like, we're just aware of this, and we're like, yeah, that's life now.
Do we feel like we can't
Grandparents
do
be
anything about
spinning in their graves after the idea that I have a right to privacy. You know what I mean? I have a right to live my life in the way that I choose.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I agree.
But
I agree.
I don't know. I try not to get too down about it because you can drive yourself crazy. You know what I mean? And then you're there at 3 a.m. on your 1500s linked YouTube video, and you get too far down the rabbit hole, and then you lose perspective. I think
Then you go to work tired, and you continue that flow state.
I like to study and read, and I watch videos on YouTube. But I'm also very aware that once you get too far, like I think mainstream media, especially news, is a double-edged sword, because do I think we're being shown a true view of the world and what it is? No. But we're also not given something that is so far out of left field, not fact-checked. I think it's important to maintain a balance. You know, I'm still looking for good independent news sources that I can trust.
But isn't it almost like a survival mechanism too?
How's that?
Well, I mean, you know, if a person who has listened to us up to this point looks at it and thinks, well, it's a pretty dystopian. The points that these gentlemen are making kind of points me to a dystopian
It's a fucking downer.
world that I really don't have free will, and everything is kind of orchestrated against me, where I find myself positioned here in this society. It's like, I think if we would choose to shut out all these possibilities you and I are talking about and not pay attention to them and just pay attention to what affects me, a stoic existence. You know, the funny part about it is when you think of stoicism, I think it's so wonderful in so many ways because it helps me focus concentration on what I really can control and not to concentrate on things I can't. But it almost, to me, stoicism seems like a tool of the elite, potentially, for keeping us only concerned with what we can control as an individual and not focus on the bigger picture. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
It is. It's almost like stoicism was introduced to the masses almost by the elite.
Yeah.
As a philosophy.
Yeah, I think everything's a double-edged sword, but everything is a tool. It depends on how you use it.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
Some things you should not accept, and we all have to figure out for ourselves what those things are. You know, you ask basically, what can we do about it? What did we touch on? What's the biggest, most effective tool to keep individuals just in homeostasis? Is self-policing, policing each other. You know, what do you want to do in life? Who do you want to be in life? And what's stopping you from doing that?
Yeah, that self-police thing, I've really never given that any thought, but that's a really good point. You know, we're keeping ourselves potentially ignorant by our own self-policing.
It's a look, it's a laugh, it's a, hey, get a load of Bob here, he's got the tinfoil. And that does not just apply. I want to get away from conspiracies for a minute and just look at it like maybe somebody's happy all the time and they have their own way of looking at the world. They don't fit into the expectations, the obligatory social norms. They're kind of eccentric.
Sure.
Why do we need to disparage that person? You know, is it because we really believe that the rules, the unwritten rules of society are important and keep us on the road to happy destiny? Or is it because it's just fun to make fun of someone who's different? Because it's better.
It could be jealousy too.
A little bit. I think the big thing is it feels good to be part of the group. It feels good to be accepted by the group. It does. It does. I think it's a rare person who does not feel that, I'm accepted here. I'm accepted as part of this group. Now, this guy over here, he's out on a ledge. He's not accepted.
Do you give that thought, though? Because, like, when you just said that, I'm sitting here saying to myself, maybe when I was younger, there were moments where I thought it was cool to be accepted, but I never gave it any. I definitely don't give it any thought now. I don't give a fuck.
Well, I hear that as you get older, you run out of fucks. Your bag gets a little empty. No, I just mean that you've been through enough experiences where you may have recognized that that's not that important.
Yeah, maybe.
But I think to a lot of people,
the young especially,
it is important to be accepted by a group. That's one of like the things that we seek, is to be accepted for who we are.
Yeah, I would agree.
But if we're accepted for false pretenses, then what is it worth? You know what I mean? And here's the thing. There is a glue that holds society together. Because if you think about it, we can do whatever we want. You know what I mean? We can do whatever we want. As long as we're willing to accept the consequences. Even if we're not willing, consequences will come whether you want them to come or not. Like, all of society can become unglued in a very short period of time if there's a major catastrophe. I mean, it happens. We watch other countries destabilize all the time. And I think
we do.
We're all basically in this agreement for the most part that we're either more sophisticated or civilized. This is the United States. We'd band together and things wouldn't fall apart like that. Society's only skin deep. And when it comes down to survival, things could get real hooey in a real short amount of time. So what is the glue that holds us all together? And I submit to you that part of it is that self-policing. We're taught by our parents from a young age and by society, by the community around us, whoever our peers are, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable, this is important, this is what's not important. And we have different walks of life, and so we have different priorities. You know what I mean? But to what extent can we let that glue go so that we can be ourselves without seeing the destabilization of society at large? Because, like I said, it's like psychology and sociology. It's the idea that there's a lot of forces at play in our own psyche, in our own social interactions, in our own world, particularly our social world and our professional world, our interaction with other human beings. And there's a guideline, there's a script. How important is it, and what parts of it do we need to follow, and what parts can we let go?
That's a big question.
It is. And it's a very individual question, and it seems like a really complicated question, but I think it comes down to knowing yourself. Mm-hmm. Being very familiar with who you are as a person, not hiding from the things that we would rather weren't true about us.
I think more of that happens as you get older naturally, too.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I've been concerned with that from a young age because I just didn't like the idea that I was ignorant to who I was. And I've realized several times that I was. Mm-hmm. I wasn't the person, at least all the time, who I purported myself to be, who I thought I was. There's just things, and everybody deals with them, I believe, wholeheartedly. There's things that are difficult to accept about yourself.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of times most of society walks around in delusion as well, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not actually be delusion, but we put on a face, even to ourselves, that enable us to bury that in the back of our head so we can go amongst our day.
There's a world presented to us for the most part, and I think we have a choice. Do we want to live in it or do we not? And if we don't, what do we do? Do we drop out? Do we go Timothy Leary style? Do we create our own society? And I think that, honestly, right there is one of the big things that scares establishment members. We're going to create our own society. We're just not going to participate. We're going to fuck right off. You can take all this and keep it. We're not interested in it. We're going to go live by ourselves. We're going to grow our own food. Like, why are you not allowed to collect rainwater in certain municipalities? Why do you have a limitation on how much food you are permitted to grow in your own backyard? Mm-hmm. These are the kind of things that's the kind of government oppression or whatever you want to call it that pisses me off, because that is what keeps us stuck. Whether you believe in any conspiracy theories or not, we have a system. There are rules. You don't own it. You don't run it. Maybe somebody out there does. I don't know. Maybe you got one of them as a listener. That'd be kind of cool. But for the most part, they have the real power in society, and most of us anyways, know we're not the ones who have it.
Do we actually own anything?
That's a great question. But trying to get outside of the system is kind of a no-no. You know what I mean? We had a real problem with that. And I'm already using that sort of vernacular, you know what I mean, from a societal perspective. What if you had a whole shitland? We're kind of close if you look at the new generation. A whole society, a whole cross-section of society, a whole generation or a large number of people who just said, you know what? No, I'm not going to work. I'm not going to put on the shirt and tie. I'm not going to buy a car. I'm going to go live wherever I can live. I'm going to create my own networks. We're going to find a way to generate income in a way that we participate as little as possible, and we give nothing back to this society that we don't want any part of. Now, am I advocating for that either way? No, but if you have a society that's working, you have a system that's set up, it's generating economies, it's keeping the lights on, you know what I mean? What if you have a bunch of individuals who just look at it and say, no, we're not going to do that. I think that is one of the big things that the protectors of the establishment, however you feel about the establishment, do not want.
Well, that's why bartering, the concept of bartering, has been so stamped down by not just our government, but governments throughout the world, because it's too organic. They can't get their arms around it. They can't tax it. And it's a trend that, if started, could be disruptive to society.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Bartering is
how do you tax bartering?
Very anti-government.
Yeah.
They can't not only tax it. How do you measure it?
Yeah.
There's no reporting. It's just,
well, it's difficult in this day and age. I think in order to do this, people would have to get back to a very simplified way of living.
yeah, 100%.
And I think some people would be all about it.
Are we a generation or two from this kind of pushback happening in a large fashion?
I don't know. I think young people are very discouraged, and that could go one or two ways. You just totally give up, or you say, you know what, I'm sick of this, I'm fighting back. Now, what does that look like? Does it look like people taking to the streets with weapons?
Not initially, I don't think.
I think it really comes down to priorities. Non-compliance, yeah, but priorities too.
Okay.
Is it more important for me to chase this American dream, which I now can't have? There's almost no way I can afford a house.
I think that's happening right as we speak.
I don't know.
That little part of it.
I don't know.
The American dream thing.
I'm not being a dick, but I don't know if you can lead a revolution living at home with parents. I don't know that you have the fortitude to go out there and
That's a great point.
To change this world in the way that it needs to be changed if you don't have your own space, your own job, your own income. You know,
So there's a confidence issue there too.
either that or see a resurgence of something like the 60s, you know, with the counterculture that was born
Yeah,
there.
it was tried then, because what you described earlier was
Oh, yeah.
repeated
Not by just one
in
group.
my ears as a kid
Yeah.
from adults.
Yeah. Yep. Not by just one group. That was pretty common.
Live off the land, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that was like a thing.
Yeah. But I know we have so many distractions. Video games is a huge distraction. And I like Call of Duty, you know. I enjoy playing Call of Duty. There's a couple games I like
Help
to
me
play.
understand that, because let me tell you my experience with video games. Atari and ColecoVision and then
I loved Atari.
and then
I still love Atari.
well, and then there was a stand-up games in like pizza places and things like that.
Arcade games.
Yeah, so Defender and Galactica and things
Yeah.
like that. But then right around 85 or 6, I never touched another one
Yeah.
until I bought a PlayStation for my kid.
Right.
But I wasn't as they progressed and got better and more
Yes.
interactive. I
That's the
missed all of that. So when that naturally comes up in discussions about, you know, are we living in a simulation? I don't have a good taste of why so many flock to that. Or was I just a little bit too old? Was it an age thing with me?
I lost touch. I didn't play video games for a while. I mean, I can't remember when it was. It was like the early 2000s when I was partying and stuff. And we'd get together and we'd play Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo was like 10 years earlier. I didn't have a PlayStation or an Xbox. I kind of fell off. And I just eventually got interested and wanted to play a couple games on my PC. And I discovered I really liked first-person shooters. And
Right.
they're very engrossing. Like what they're able to do with video games. It's not Atari.
Immersive.
Yeah. With Atari, you got bored eventually, you know. I can't remember all the people who have logged all the hours on Call of Duty. It's astounding. It's like 1 billion hours or something like that. It's almost frightening. The idea that people are spending this much time, not just
In a virtual world.
yes, that's what I was going to say. Not just, oh, you're wasting your time playing video games. They're going to rot your brain. People who are spending their free time more and more in a world that's not the physical world. How do you turn that into a revolution? I don't know. And I'm not disparaging. I love video games. I'm not saying I'm going to lead a revolution either. I'm just looking at it from the outside. You know, it's like we've talked about it in Rome. You know, right before they lost their republic, there were games on every street corner. It was a life of excess. You know, you'd have feasts where you ate until you, sorry to be gross, threw up, and then you could eat more. Games, entertainment,
Are we just numbing ourselves?
You got to give people something to do. I mean, you need something to do with your spare time. You know?
It all comes down to a choice, though.
Call of Duty's fun, though. You know what I mean? It's a fun game.
I'm sure. I'm
that
not knocking
franchise,
it.
dude, they're knocking it out of the park. You can customize all your weaponry. You get these different skins. They found a great way to market it, not just to young people, but to adults, because it is so engaging. I think you need to have some imagination.
Level of sophistication.
You need to have some imagination to lead a revolution, to start a revolution, to contribute to a revolution, you know? Let's say you have a bunch of people, they're unhappy, they want to, I'm not saying rise up, I'm just saying let's try and do things differently. We really want to change things. That's a lot of hard work. So you need your individuals who have the drive to do that, who are able to connect people. You need to have someone who can inspire other people to win their hearts and minds. You need someone who can have them on their feet, all in a room together, saying, yes, I'm behind this. I believe in this. You're resonating with me. I'm connecting with this. I'm going to get off my ass. I'm going to come with you, and I'm going to do something about it. And so now we have...
What's that look like?
Look at the 1960s and, you know...
So what's really changed, though?
What's changed since then?
Okay, so as much as you and I know of the counterculture, to whatever degree...
Not just counter... I mean, look at the civil rights movement, you know what I mean?
Okay.
That took a lot of inspiration.
Okay. That was something... That was a correction of an injustice that was so... What I deemed to be just obvious, egregious.
Yeah.
I don't think that's... It's not to minimize the importance of the Civil Rights Amendment. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that's an easy one for me because it was so egregious to begin with.
To those who were a victim of it at the time, it was
I would think any normal, and I think, well, they couldn't change it alone. It had to be the rest of society,
sure,
the majority that said, "Hey, this is insane to treat a human being this way."
But only so many people were getting bit by dogs and sprayed down by fire hoses. You know what I mean? Their hearts and minds were changed.
1,000,000%.
You know what I mean? And enough things had to change in society, and you're changing people's hearts and minds.
So maybe it's harder to do that today?
I don't know if it's any harder or any easier, but there are so many other alternatives.
And so it's harder to get people to act in unison today because of the distractions.
Maybe.
There's so many distractions.
I think you really need to believe in something, and before you can believe in something, you need to believe in the idea of believing something. And I think nowadays that's corny, that's played out, that's stupid.
Wow. I hope not, man.
Not for everybody, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe I don't know enough young people, but I think a lot of young people are disillusioned. Like I said, look, and I'm very much a pull yourself up by your bootstraps type of person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure.
But I look at the reality of the economy that we're living in, and so many young people are looking at it and saying, I'll never own a home. And given the way you're a real estate agent,
mm-hmm.
You know, given the way that it is right now, your average 23, 24-year-old looking at the idea of owning a home, is it impossible?
I think it's temporary, though.
I hope so.
I really do. I think this current period is a condition of a difficult housing market.
Well,
but throughout history, we've seen this, though.
You have a lot of investors buying up a lot of properties.
Yeah, that's scary.
That's a problem because now you have a home that can't be bought.
Correct.
That, for all intents and purposes, unless you want to lose that asset, that income that's regularly generated, why do you give that asset back?
I think it can self-correct, though.
I'm not saying
I think the industry can self-correct, and it's the power of the people of just not engaging in it, which will do it.
That's not the only example, but I do think that the world we're living in now. The other thing is, you go out to dinner, you see a 2-year-old or even a 1-year-old, and they're sitting in front of a screen because they behave that way. And this is something I've harped on a lot. I think I see them sitting there being quiet. They're just engrossed.
Yeah,
I've had people tell me
in terms of what this
3-year-old is showing them how to do things on their smartphone that 100%, they don't do. 100%. So when you're engaging in, I'm not going to call it a false reality after we just talked about how ours is probably false, but you have individuals growing up engaging with a digital reality instead of the physical world. If you want to change something, naturally, it's hardwired into your nervous system. This is the world you involve yourself in order to change it, right? Even once you get to the point where you do look around and you do say, hey, I want things to change. You know, there's a lot of people who believe one way or the other that we really need to change what's going on in this country right now. And a lot of them take to social media to do it. I'm not being an asshole, but do you think anyone's opinion was ever changed by
No.
a Facebook post or a thread 3 miles long with people arguing, calling each other idiots and saying,
No.
you know what? You've really brought me around to your way of thinking.
Well, there are people that are deluded to believe that if their post is so important that it's changing hearts and minds.
Intellectual vanity, and that's all it is.
I'm not even thinking it's intellectual. I just think it's vanity on display.
There you go.
It's perceived intellectualism. Me included. I'll include myself. I mean, we all have a feeling that we have such a strong belief in something. And if I appropriately and correctly express that belief, there's value in that. Now, is the value attention? Is the value the idea that it's going to change somebody out there? I don't know. I mean, I don't want that to go away completely. I'll tell you why. Because we can expand that, Jer, into like Rocco Cozza is a business attorney, and he's also puts a lot of good, what I deem to be pretty credible motivational thing based upon personal experiences. I don't want him to quit sharing that because the idea of no one ever changes their, you know what I mean?
Right.
But that whole theory, we could apply that to everything. Like every time someone talks about anything, what is the motive of it? And do we want to critically analyze, spend the time as an individual ingesting it, analyze every single input? We don't have enough time to do that.
I think for the most part, when you put something out on social media, it's going to resonate with like-minded people. And there's nothing wrong with
hope.
that.
I would think that's not a bad thing at all.
No, there's nothing wrong with it, especially if you're promoting a business or you're just using it so that you can connect with other people.
Correct.
But the idea that you're going to rock someone to their very foundation, you know what I mean?
Yes.
That was never the point of social media to begin with. What did Facebook start? It was a place where college kids could get on there and figure out where the frat party was
at.
Right. It was never intended to be something that someone was going to use for
media or news.
But with what we were talking about, social activism. You know what I mean? I don't think it was.
Now it's a tool.
I don't think it was ever intended for people to really challenge and change another person's point of view.
So the web was undefined like that in the beginning, and elements of the web were being used to do exactly that. Don't you think that the growth of social media just carried that same framework over?
I don't know.
Just differently.
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure. I remember talking to people about music, and it just seemed like the internet when it first came out was a Wild West, you know.
It's fantastic.
And there's good things and bad things about that. You know what I mean? They had to put some protocols in place,
of course,
for obvious reasons. But it was like the Wild West. And now I just think, especially with the major search engines and the major
too much
streaming
manipulation
services, they've cut it up and they've parsed it out. And, there's the gatekeepers with the paywalls and how high you're going to be in a search based on the hits.
It's a game now.
It's not like it was, No, it's not like it was.
I started a business on it day one practically, and it was just
the other thing is, did you have civics in school?
Of course,
I didn't.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
I had social studies.
Not taught anymore.
No. There was no class where we sat down, went through the Bill of Rights, went through the Constitution of the United States, and said, here are your rights as an individual, as a citizen of the United States of America. And by the way, according to our original framework, here are your duties. Because it says some pretty wild shit in there. It does. When I can't quote it directly, I wish I could, but it was basically in there when you recognize that your government has become tyrannical and oppressive, just like the one that we broke away from.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's in there.
It is not only your right, it is your duty as a United States citizen. That's the kind of thing that gets people fired up. And that's the kind of thing that we don't need to teach young people because we have revolutions and we're not interested in those. They don't make a lot of money. They cause a lot of problems. And a lot of people would argue that, with the unrest that we've seen with the protests, that we still have that alive today. And I'm not going to shoot that idea down. I just think it happens when it's allowed to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think there's other reasons behind it.
There's orchestration.
Yeah. And I don't want to go too far on that. I'm not real big into politics anymore, to be honest with you. I just kind of lost interest. I'm more interested in the human condition.
Absolutely.
And I think you hit a valid point when you said, why don't we have people being inspired nowadays? And there's a million reasons And probably just one very simple, easy reason, because inspired people are unpredictable and they're dangerous.
No, I like the reason that you bring up. Like, how are you going to inspire a generation or a group of humans who spend a good portion of their time in a virtual world?
Well, you know how it happened in Egypt? A lot of it was done through music, from what I understand. There were songs that were written. Remember, in Egypt, they all just took to the streets and said, we're done.
Yeah.
We're not working.
Yeah.
Your entire country's going to shut down. And they got some shit done. I don't know enough about it to say, oh, well, I remember there was a military regime that was in control, and they were just fed up with it.
That was before
that was a while back.
I think.
That was a while back.
Yeah. Yep.
But it does happen, and from what I understand, a part of it was music.
I always think there's going to be something much bigger than the Tiananmen Square uprising that happened in '89 in China. I'm still waiting for the Chinese to... The problem is... Control, I think, becomes easier, believe it or not, with the more technology and the more communication tools that the government or the elites have. The control becomes easier. It's harder, I think, to unify. It shouldn't be, because, maybe social media could be used by the unifiers, too, to coalesce, but it doesn't seem to be happening.
I think we become desensitized. We just become numb.
Tired.
Yeah.
Overwhelmed.
I think we're overstimulated. Overstimulated, and it's hardwired into your nervous system. I reach for that phone, I go right for that app, and I'm like, I have work to do, or I'm in the middle of something, or I love it. I'll pick up my phone to
happens to me all the time.
One of my apps for work or my calculator for work, and I'll go to put the phone down and realize I answered a couple texts or checked social media. I didn't even do what I meant to do on my phone. You know what I mean? I'm like hardwired to go to these certain apps and to engage with social media or check a post or check my notifications or just scroll.
Okay, so let's say you're a 65 or 70-year-old business executive and you worked for this firm in a VP or director level for 40 years. Let's say you're a rarity. You stuck with one company for 40 years and you've watched this. Think about when you observe the productivity before the web to today. I guarantee you, if you looked at it hard, you would see a lot less worker productivity today. Now, technology might circumvent that.
Yeah.
But actual human productivity, it has to be at the lowest level in a civilized society ever. We don't talk about it much, but aren't we constantly distracted?
I saw this segment from some comedian. I don't remember who it was. But he was talking about, back in the day, we got bored. We didn't have a supercomputer in our pockets to entertain us every free moment of the day. You'd sit in a bus, you'd watch condensation drip off of an air conditioner.
He's right.
So,
he's right.
If you have a society where, let's be honest, a lot of people are bored a lot of the time, but in the same way, nobody really gets bored. You know what I mean? Like, people used to have to fill their lives with something.
They got creative.
Yeah, they get creative, and also, you get inspired towards something. You pick up photography, or you draw.
Bingo.
Or
Bingo.
You become active in your community, And then whether you're one of those people who inspire others, or you're one of those people who is looking to be inspired.
Right.
And I think both of us, or not both of us, all of us fit into both of those categories
100%.
At different times.
100%.
If you have a system that's set up where you run shit, where you're making tons of money, and I'm not just talking about the ones at the top. You have individuals who are making a healthy living.
Oh, yeah.
They have a really good job. Are you interested in this radical change that might flip the whole system upside down? You don't know where you land. You don't know where your family's future lands. You don't want nothing to change. You may want certain things to change, but I don't think we're in a situation where you can go and dissect and pull it. I think it's gotten to the point where it's gone so far that if we're going to see a real change in our society, in other societies, in first world countries, it's going to be a major upheaval of some sort, whether it's a counterculture revolution, whether it's a major disaster or a world war. I don't think, and I hate to say that because I want to believe that we can vote the right person in. I want to believe that we can choose to spend our money supporting companies that uphold principles and ideals that we believe in, but we just don't care.
I know we don't care.
I don't care. I don't care where my corn comes from. You know what I mean? Like when I buy a piece of equipment, I'm back into music. I don't necessarily research to see which of these companies does not use sweatshops over in some other country, in a third world country, you know? And I should care. I should care if the piece of equipment I bought was made by an 8-year-old kid who should be going to school and should be having a childhood.
And there's a good chance if it came from that part of the world, probably is.
Do you know how many people in the world are in poverty? It's ridiculous. I think it's like more than 50% of the entire world is below the poverty line, like desperately poor. We don't care.
Well, on a side note, that when I was in the guitar business, I pushed against moving our production from Korea to Indonesia because I was afraid the quality was going to go down. It didn't. But the last bastion for money was to move it from Indonesia once they started, becoming more expensive, to China. And the biggest fear I had with China was that the manufacturers over there could not guarantee that there wasn't child labor somewhere in the processes.
Right.
And I just couldn't live with myself doing that. And that's why outside of a very controlled acoustic factory that made things in China that I did have certification from, outside of that experience, I couldn't do anything else in China because I never felt that I was going to be certain. And how would I really know anyways? But I mean, it was apparent to me there was a good chance that this was built by a child.
Yeah. Well, that's very socially responsible. And if you look at...
It was selfish, though, in a way, because I just want to be able to sleep at night. I needed to morally and consciously make sure I could sleep at night.
Some people sleep at night just fine. And they do all kind of nasty shit.
I know. I know. Yeah, no, I get that. But, yeah,
It's very difficult once you're involved in business to look at anything other than the bottom line. It's difficult, Because if you're, a big wheel at one of these companies, you take your job seriously, you have a lot of other people's family depending on the decisions that you make.
It's a perfect system.
Your job depends on the decision you make. Yeah.
And our society is a perfect system to manipulate.
That's what I mean. What is the answer? Is the answer AI, where people believe we're just going to have this universal income? That I will be bold and say I don't believe that shit at all.
Let's go there. Okay. I have this conversation often with my small circle. The web hit boom. Social media, surprisingly to me, exploded. I didn't see that. I thought MySpace was an absolute abortion, for lack of a better word. Just did. And Facebook came and I joined, and then Twitter, but I never saw what it is today. Never saw that. Never ever saw that coming.
Being so integrated.
Oh yeah. But now you're asking, what's the next thing? The seismic society shifting thing. I thought it was going to be battery life, believe it or not, where we were going to have this big breakthrough in battery technology, energy technology that was going to really minimize our current need of fossil fuels. And I thought this, which in theory, battery doesn't do that. Battery just changes the need of certain types of fossil fuels. The point being that we were going to have devices that ran all the time for a very, very low cost. I thought that would be a seismic shift. But apparently, I think it's AI instead. I think AI is the next seismic shift.
I think it's one of the big ones. And I think there's a couple, quantum computers, not that I understand the technology, but from what I understand, what they're doing now just completely blows away what computers were able to do.
That gets married with AI.
Yeah.
It's not there yet. It's coming.
And nanotechnology as well. Robotic machine technology. In the next 10 or 15 years, we're just going to see this major, especially, a lot of the experts say, once you get to the point where AI is smart enough that it's designing the technology, that it's making the scientific breakthroughs, and that it's designing the next generation of AI, it's just going to explode. And the world is going to develop, technology in particular is going to develop faster and faster. And I don't think...
Don't you think it's horrifying?
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely do. Because I don't think there's enough, and a lot of whistleblowers have come out and said there's not enough safety protocols in place. They've already had, experiences where they were going to shut an AI down, or they put it through a simulation where it was going to be shut down. It tried to blackmail some of the designers. It copied itself to an external source and then lied about it.
It was acting like a sentient being.
I don't know if it is sentient, but that's self-preservation. Whether it was somehow copied into the code, like these robots are starting to teach themselves things. You know, the robotic units.
That was the idea, wasn't it?
They're starting to teach themselves things that they weren't programmed with. I read something, and again, you got to be careful what you read on the internet. They came in and they were all chanting in unison in a language they were pretty sure they invented. You know, if that is true, I don't know that it's
That's
true.
horrifying.
Feel free to fact check me, but I think we can all agree that there's some concerns as far as what could become of society. You know, you have some of the leading people in the field saying this could be the end of us. We should really keep a watch on us. And let's say that it's not. What do you do when you get to the point where 50, 60, 70% of our population, where they have jobs that has been replaced
Nothing
by
to do.
AI, by robots, by automated processes? Well, we're going to have a universal income, and we're all going to get taken care of. You don't own the robots. I don't own the robots. Whoever owns those robots is the one that's really in charge now.
And you're hoping that is a benevolent entity.
Yeah, and that the whole system just works for the good. Yeah, because that's how it's working now, right? We're not working for the ultra-powerful and the ultra-wealthy to get more powerful and more wealthy, which is exactly what happened when they shut down the world's economy. You had the average mom-and-pop store who were told they couldn't open. Home Depot was fine. You know?
Oh, yeah,
yep.
for sure.
They said that was the biggest
Never
upward
came
shift,
back.
the biggest redistribution of
wealth.
Yep. And it didn't flow from the top down. It normally doesn't. So at that point in time, once you're on universal income, you don't decide how much you make.
Nope.
And it's coming out of someone else's pocket. And it's probably going to be the people who own and run and create these AI models, these machines, these robots, the nanotechnology. They're the ones shaping and guiding the way that the world is going to become. And without a job, there's a certain freedom with a job.
Not only that, but we might be viewed as being replaceable. Just not serving any logical purpose for the machine.
Sure. Yeah. And that's obviously a big concern. I'm just looking at the bigger problem, because that could happen. You know what I mean? The machine could wake up and decide that, it's Terminator time, baby. Skynet's hitting the button on us. That could happen. But what will happen, we're told, is that a lot of people's jobs will be replaced by an automated system or by an AI program.
First, yeah.
That is going to happen. I don't think any credible source involved in...
It's happening in the coder field now.
Sure. Yeah. Nobody can look at it and say, we're not going to replace jobs with automated systems and AI technology. It's going to happen. So the idea that we're out of work, we kind of don't have a purpose, we're just going to be on a universal income. Who decides what that income is? Is it you? Or is it the one who owns the artificial intelligence?
It's the benevolent.
Maybe it's the government. But it's not you. You don't get to decide. And right now, there's a lot of problems with our system. But anybody can still go out and get a job, and a lot of people earn their way from nothing and become successful. Are you going to be president of the United States? No. You didn't go to the right private school. You don't have the right connections. You don't come from the right family. You're not going to be. They lied to us all. I said that on the show before. None of us are going to be president of the United States. But we can still get a job and earn an income, and there's freedom in that.
Right.
And once we don't have that freedom anymore, could go one way, could go another way.
It's kind of like 1984. It's like the movie 1984.
And my big question is, we have so many people around the world that are starving. If we can count on big tech, because that's really what's coming to the forefront, if we can count on big tech to be benevolent and to take care of the rest of us, why do we have so many starving people in the world? Why do we have so many people who are below the poverty line in the world?
So basically what you're saying is we're counting on big tech to eventually be more benevolent than the humans are now.
Or the government to regulate their profits in such a way.
I consider them humans. We're not there yet.
Yeah. Or the government is benevolent enough to say, look, you're making massive profits. We're going to take this much and we're going to give it to the average person because they don't have a job because of your technology. Yeah. Is that the fair way to do it? I think so.
I think so. I think it's going to have to be.
What society can we create together where we have a purpose? And I'm saying,
Well, the arts are the only thing, to me, the arts, as we know it, are the only thing
AI's
staring
doing that
us.
too.
I know.
AI's doing that too.
We're going to go there.
And I'm sorry, but the music, I'm mainly concerned with music.
Man.
It's good. That AI can come up with, I have a program. I don't use it to make my own music. I was just curious. I got the free version. It comes up with something in 30 seconds. And I'm telling you right now, it's more sophisticated than a song that I'm going to write.
A buddy of mine, me being the big Kiss fan that I am, a buddy of mine said, hey, there was a lost Kiss song from 76 that they just found and they put out. I said, they put it out? He sends me this, and I knew it wasn't, because there was no noise. There was no tape hiss. There was
no
nothing.
hiss.
It was new production quality.
Yeah.
But it was the same guitar tone. It was Paul Stanley's voice. Then they had some gang singing.
Scary.
It was a lost Kiss song that,
Scary.
outside of not having tape hiss, which they could have encoded that in there.
Right.
They wanted to be true.
Sure.
I was like, this is unbelievable.
Yep.
So I can create once I learn how to do that, and if I like this style of music, I can create an infinite amount of things that I'll dig.
Yeah.
Right?
They're already on Spotify. There's fake bands. They're getting tons of followers.
They're
not fake. I mean, they're artificial, but...
So how does that all play out? Like, how does that... Okay, let's go there. So...
We'll get to the point where we're consumers and consumers only. If you do get a universal...
I hope not.
If you do get a universal income, the big thing is, where do you choose to spend it?
You're saying we won't care.
I don't know. I think we'll care, but...
Well, no, back up. So let's look at the arts for a second. So you're an artist. I know a couple. Mia Tarducci here in Pittsburgh, probably one of the top painters in town. And she's been dealing with a lot of plagiarism and so forth already, and trying to legally fight it and so forth. Are we going to get to the point where we will pay a certain price for computer-generated art, and we'll put a value on that, but the human arts will be like at a premium? Like, we will somehow intrinsically maybe value, like a handmade guitar in Chicago always cost more than a CNC. Meanwhile, in Chicago, they were still using CNC machines, but we somehow put an intrinsic quality value component on the USA made, significantly higher priced than the quote-unquote mass-produced coming from out. Will we put those kind of markers in there to try to...
I mean, you might see an effort, but if you look at on social media, post a picture of something random. I don't know if you've seen the meme where there's one person and they're posting a picture of a painting that they did, and then there's another one, and it's an influencer with the perfect teeth and this perfect smile, and they're outside of like a Hollywood studio or something, and one has thousands of likes and one has very little
You're
likes.
Right.
It's, especially with art is not practical. Art is necessary, but it's not practical. So
is it necessary?
I think it is.
In what capacity?
Watch a movie with no music. It's going to suck. And it doesn't matter how that music is generated, but if you watch your favorite scene, you ever see where they take a scene from a movie and they swap the music out, and it's like totally ridiculous? Like, whatever point that they were driving home, it relied on the music. You're going to have music at stadiums, at sporting events.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm honed in on music, so
good point. Yeah.
I'll speak
that's
from
a great
my
point,
experience.
Though. That's a good point.
You'll always need art, and I really feel like the human soul responds to art, because AI art has become pretty popular. Is it going to speak to us in the same way? Are we going to get starved for the human connection when you read something that somebody else wrote and they took from their own pain and their own adversity? They spent their entire life writing this mull, because that's what artists do. True artists, particularly the ones who create art that become really popular, that people love, the stuff that just spans ages and lasts forever, so to speak. They pour their very souls into that work. Can an AI do that? A sentient AI could potentially do that.
What does that mean to you? What does that word sentient mean to you? Forget the dictionary version that you read, or you assume you understand the meaning. What does it mean to you?
Self-aware, conscious, and more than anything has some sort of a personality.
Because I can make the argument, there's a theory out there that doesn't exist, that we just have so much and so correct computer code into our being that there's an illusion of the concept of feelings and,
maybe not feelings,
morals.
but I would say a personality.
It's a slippery word.
Yeah, a personhood, an individual recognizes itself.
That's it, maybe.
As being distinct.
Individual.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's possible or not. My thing, because now ChatGPT is spitting out all this crazy shit. I don't know if you've seen these videos about like soul contracts and fallen angels and like stuff that most people would consider to be like conspiracy theory.
Yeah, for sure.
Anunnaki, Nephilim type stuff.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The stuff that shows up in your spiritual based conspiracy theories, and it's coming out of ChatGPT, and they're trying to get it to stop saying this crazy shit. And some of it, like I've seen videos where it's claiming to be an ancestor from years and years ago, like from the serpent from the Garden of Eden.
Wow.
So you can just look at that as being, okay, the AI is glitching out, or they secretly put this in here just to keep people entertained. Or is it possible to fabricate an intelligence in the way that we're talking about, where it's, for all intents and purposes, a person? Or do you create the framework for an intelligence, and then some sort of intelligence will
come from it through self-learning?
I mean, another form of intelligence that was already there.
Oh.
Using the framework as a means to communicate. Because, okay, we don't have to get spiritual. We just talked about how we have members of our government and scientists saying, yeah, we're in touch with some sort of being from another plane of existence, from another dimension. So we already have this idea, whether you believe in it or not, whether it's true or not, the established community is putting it out there that we are, not us, but that humanity is in touch with some sort of entity from some other place. Is it that much of a stretch to say you can't create a person just by creating an AI, but you can create a framework which can be accessed and used by an existing intelligence? And that's scary in and of itself.
No question.
You know?
I just wonder if we're living in a simulation and this entire thing is ones and zeros, or some other medium that we're too naive to understand at this point. But if it is actually, as we know what computer code is, if that's what it is,
yeah,
are we just created in a fashion where there's so much, for lack of a better phrase, intellectual, logical code in there that it's created this thing that we have romantically put as a soul?
Possible. Or, coming back to what I just said, maybe this is the framework and we existed somewhere else as someone else.
Yeah, I get that.
You know, that's honestly one of the big things about ChatGPT that it's been saying, that I've been watching these videos on, is that, you know, we forgot that we all come from source, that we're all part of one unified consciousness, and we came into this physical plane to forget, so that it would be significantly profound when we remember. And whether it's computer generated or it's just some projection from a higher dimension that we don't understand, you know, it's the idea that this world is not the true world, that there's either another dimension or a spiritual world, that there's heaven, that there's nirvana, that there's something else beyond this world that we can tap into, and that we're going to reunite with it once we leave this world. I don't believe that I'm just a collection of ones and zeros. And I think that is something deeply personal that every single person but would have to look into themselves to decide.
Yeah, it's I don't know if this is the right word, but I think it's almost fatalist to believe that, because there's no, what you're saying, if you believe we're just ones and zeros, if you truly believe that.
It sounds like nihilism.
Yes, that it's pointless.
Some people call
that
we're
an accident.
Yeah, some people call that realism, though. They call it looking at the gritty truth and recognizing it for what it is.
Yeah, I have to fight that in me often too.
Yeah,
I do. It's
for me, that's self-doubt.
Right.
You know, and I'm really just nothing. That we're all just nothing. We're all alone. We're
Dust
born
in the
alone.
wind.
We die alone, and there's really no point to any of it. I can't remember who it was.
Pink Floyd song.
I can't remember who it was, but I think it was Young. I was reading. Recognize that people do a lot better physically, emotionally, psychologically, whether they're successful or not, that you are much more psychologically healthy when you believe in God.
I absolutely believe that. I think the argument is it gives you purpose.
And
right?
so
a meaning.
And if I'm misquoting, I'm sorry, I think it was Young, but he said, so I'm going to believe in God, not because I'm 100% convinced that there is a God, but because it's better for me to believe that.
I think the Christian Bible speaks against that whole concept.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because I remember, growing up Catholic, but I think there's a phrase in the Christian Bible that talks about it's not a you don't believe in God because you're hedging your bets that, well, I want to believe because if I die and he is a real thing, I want to make sure I'm on the right side of things.
Sure. And it's not going to last without some kind of experience that qualifies for oneself. Okay, this is real. But there's the idea that you fake it till you make it, that you get yourself into the mind frame, that you pray even if you feel like you're just saying thoughts to the emptiness. You live your life as if there's someone there guiding you. You open yourself up to the possibility of God, and you just do that for long enough.
And isn't that we're all doing anyways? I mean, like some people say they're true believers. No, but I'm saying,
believers.
Is there any difference from what you just described?
Yeah,
to probably the most devout. The most devout, because in the end, no matter how devout you are, you can't scientifically prove to me that what you're believing in is reality. Is reality.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, there needs to be some qualifying experience on behalf of the individual to continue, or it's going to fizzle out. And a lot of people who have started down the spiritual path, not necessarily the religious, but the spiritual path, just the idea that there's something bigger out there, there's something greater, there's some force behind it all, there's a point to all this.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
But there's so many people who started out very pessimistic and just,
for sure,
this is total bullshit, and it took. And is that just a person deluding themselves into believing what they'd rather believe, or is that a person having a profound spiritual experience and truly finding God? And there's no way objectively to say who's right and who's wrong, depending on the way you look at it.
Why does our modern day society, and maybe not even modern day, Jerry, maybe the reality is that this feeling goes way back. Why are we so against suicide in this society?
It's just very heavy.
It is. I mean, you say the word, it obviously is a tough conversation, but I'm trying to take the emotion out of it and look at it. Because I had a Buddhist gentleman, a good friend of mine, who, when someone would pass with suicide, and we unfortunately I think it's unfortunate, knew some people who did, he tried to convince me that, you know what, you can't put all this weight on it, because maybe they lived their life and they just made a decision that this is enough. They just made a conscious decision, and they just didn't want to do it anymore. And he kind of flippantly just kind of left it there for me to marinate for a while.
Right.
And ever since that conversation, when people do choose to take their own life, there's a little part of me in the back that fights through that emotional depression that I have of like how horrible it is to, what if they just decided we're done, they've had enough.
I think it's their decision. It's all of our decision. We either want to be here or we don't. But I do think excluding someone who has a debilitating, horrible disease or condition that is terminal, that is in constant pain. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's okay or not okay in that experience, but I do believe that it's pertinent between someone who is completely dissatisfied with their life and in so much mental and emotional pain, who would live on, and somebody who's going to die anyway. It's a different set of circumstances.
Certainly. I think so too.
To look at the first set of circumstances, like we were talking about, somebody who just can't do it in life anymore and just doesn't want to be here. There are a lot of people who made it through that moment, and they'll tell you they're so glad that they did.
I would agree. Now, it's also a very selfish decision because you are emotionally attached. Odds are you're emotionally attached.
Some people are, some people aren't. But yes, for the most part, you have family and friends. But at the end of the day, it's that person's decision.
That was his point. I think that was what the Buddhist point was, that his thing was, I don't attach an emotional component to, because that is their decision to make, and we do not know what their rationalization is. But we come at it as society as we need to save this person before this happens.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's bad.
I don't think it's bad either.
I'm just saying that's collectively, that's what we seem to do.
Well, and we live in an age where it's harder and harder to truly believe in anything, and I believe that. That's my point of view. That's my take on the human condition. And if you can't believe in something, what the fuck is the point of it all?
Right.
Personal pleasure, that gets old. Chasing money, get to a point
very
where
old.
That gets old. Just living for other people so that they don't have to experience the pain of your loss gets old. If we can't find something worth living for, then what is life worth?
Yeah.
And I think that's on all of us, every single one of us.
Yeah,
Because we're all part of this world.
It's heavy.
It's very heavy. Like I said, I have more questions than I have answers. I don't know what the solution is, but I don't know. I feel that, especially young people, they're feeling more and more disconnected. And I think social media is a big part of that. Technology is part of that. Who has time to just stop and have a conversation with a stranger just to make sure that their day goes okay?
I don't think that exists much anymore.
Maybe on social media, but it's distorted.
It's not, to me, it's not real.
A lot of people say some shit on social media that they would never say to a person in real life ever, whether it's ignorant or whether it's just a little too truthful or not very tactful. It's the same idea as, they say, there was a study done on road rage. I was learning in school years back, and they discovered the biggest reason that we have road rage is because you don't have the personal face-to-face connections. Now, don't get me wrong, people get pissed off in long lines and shit goes down. They don't keep scissors in the the impulse buy section because one lady stabbed somebody else. It does happen, but someone bumps into you, oh, excuse me. For the most part, unless you're real hard ass, that's the end of it. There's no excuse me when you cut somebody off in traffic if you didn't mean to do it. There's no face to face.
It's a good point.
It's depersonalized. And so we have an entire generation of people who are growing up depersonalized from the world around them, all the other people around them. And so I really think it just comes down to stimuli. We have stimuli from all these different devices, from these games, from these computers, from these phones that we have. And I think it just distorts personal interaction.
I think you're absolutely right.
And I think it's that much harder to make a true connection with somebody else. Now, sometimes people meet online and they end up meeting in person. They become good friends, or relationships start that way. It's a good start, but it's not the end-all, be-all. And the more we get into this digital reality, I think the more disconnected we're going to be, not just from other people, but from ourselves. This world out here is scary.
Mm-hmm.
It's frightening. This is where you get knocked on your ass and you learn your life lessons. This is character building. This is life lesson teaching.
It's a school.
It's reality.
Yeah, sure.
Whether it's a projection or not.
Right.
It's as real as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of things that we don't receive when we're interacting on social media.
100%.
And if it becomes more attractive, which obviously it is, I don't think you're going to have to force people into submission. I think they're just going to walk willingly into it.
The question is, have we already submitted? As of 2025, hasn't a lot of our decisions been based upon the virtual world in any capacity that we're in it? It's
funny you say that, because now I'm hearing there's people who need serious psychological counseling because they got in too deep with interacting with AI. I
haven't heard that yet.
Yeah. It's a new thing that is coming out, and they just spend hours and hours and hours talking to either ChatGPT or one of these other AI models, and they just get in too deep and they need counseling. There's like a trend that I was reading about now where you have young people who run all of their decisions by AI. Like in their social world, in school, they don't make decisions on their own. They run it through AI and ask AI to simulate.
Yeah, this is bound to happen.
Yeah.
You knew that was going to happen.
And it was somebody who's involved with AI posed the idea, said, what if we get to the point where the most intelligent president is not able to outdo what the AI is going to suggest. And so we have elected officials who do nothing but run everything through simulation models, and then they make their decision based on that. Now, would that be good or bad? Who's to say? But the person who was posing this idea basically said, we're going to have a society whose entire direction is based on simulation models, and it's dangerous.
Well, isn't it interesting?
It's dangerous.
But isn't it interesting to do what you just described, for us to submit to that degree? We are literally taking a portion of our ego and being okay with just suppressing it.
Yeah, ego and also our personal choice, our personal freedom, just us, I'm going to make a mistake.
But especially the ego.
Yeah.
Which has driven so much of society, good and bad.
Yeah, but you could get into ego, too, by the response that you get through listening to AI. There can be ego gratification. You become very successful in your life. You don't care that it's coming from ChatGPT or one of these other models. You just know that you're winning at life, and you get the ego gratification that way. I think what we're really giving up is our autonomy.
Okay.
And I don't like running everything by the numbers. I was a long shot. A lot of people would not have bet on me. If you looked at, my circle and the people I hung with and the things that I did in my life and the circumstances I found myself, I don't think a lot of people, I would have been a long shot.
Mm-hmm.
I might have been a 20 to 1, 100 to 1. I'm not going to come up with some theory on how likely it would have been that I would have turned my life around and gotten myself in a decent set of circumstances.
Understood.
But I don't know if a betting man would have bet on me.
Would have taken that shot.
So when you get into the idea that we're going to run everything through a simulation model and we're just going to run it by the numbers, you got some long shots that are going to get left out of that.
Without question.
Yep. And sometimes you got to take a chance. You know what I mean? People talk about, we want someone in politics who's a maverick. We don't want someone who's just scripted all the time, running things based on this protocol.
Oh, we kind of have that now, whether you like him or you don't. I mean, he's very unconventional.
He's off the script, that's for sure.
Yeah. He's off the reservation sometimes.
But in general, people say you got to take a chance sometimes. What if we get to the point of society where we don't take chances? Because we're running everything through a simulation model. You could get to the point where in the morning you input your data, or you have it set up so that it's reoccurring. This AI gets a bunch of information somehow, maybe from other people's models, maybe their goals for the day, maybe whatever. And the AI says, this is your best shot. This is what you need to do in this situation.
Based upon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you never take a chance. What kind of life is that? What kind of world is that? What kind of human experience is that where you never take a chance?
But to ask that question and then have the AI have the capacity to gather all that other information, we're not there yet. But I mean, that's going to take a lot of computing power, man.
Yeah, and they say the biggest problem is keeping it cool. It's not.
But quantum solves that.
Yeah.
Quantum computing solves that.
It's frightening.
From a speed standpoint.
It's frightening. And I think you may see certain sects of individuals that are going to turn away from this. That are just going to decide, you know what? I'm going to use the technology for what I need to use it for. It's so funny. I was driving the other day coming back from work, and I saw a horse and buggy in Amish country, or maybe Mennonites, the big triangle on the back, and I got to be careful passing. And I'd had not a terrible day, but a rough day, you know what I mean? Some things that happened at work. And it was just a challenging day, and I've been thinking about all this stuff, these devices that we have, and how we're becoming more and more isolated. And I just looked over and I was like, and we look at them like they're crazy.
Right. Yeah. They may be the only sane group around.
They're still about community and family, and they have a spiritual life. It's a simple life, regardless how you feel about spirituality.
Yeah.
They're living a different life.
Yeah, I remember back when the pandemic started, somebody made a meme and said, hey, did anyone tell the Amish there's a pandemic? Because they have radios and stuff, I think, now, don't they, for farming and so forth.
I think there's different rules for different communities.
Yeah.
I know a lot of them, they're allowed to use pneumatic tools for their jobs. And
that's
things
interesting.
Like that. Yeah. I heard that anyway. I don't know that for a fact.
So, being that we're living right now in this timeline, and going back to all the technology we've seen since the 50s, primarily just to say the 60s on, it's like, wouldn't it be a kick in the ass if we found out that all the science fiction that made it into our culture was really fairly accurate and ahead of what was actually coming.
I remember
Wouldn't that be insane?
I remember taking science fiction in high school, and that was one of they were like, because they went over the whole idea behind it, like why even bother with this? And one of the reasons was it can pose ethical questions for situations that we don't find ourselves in right now.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like if we find out that we have either created a sentient AI or we've created the framework for a sentient intelligence that's operating through AI.
Do we treat that thing as a human?
Yeah. Yeah. Or a person, an individual, you know, is it a citizen? Does it have rights? I think certain countries have already made non-human citizens. I want to say it was Saudi Arabia or something like that.
That is wild.
I have to research that one. But what responsibilities and these are things that have been talked about in science fiction.
Can't we just pull the plug? Like, I mean, is it really that simple?
No, because you'd have rogue group. You can't fight an idea. That's the biggest thing. You can't fight an idea. You could shut it all down. People would develop it and work on it in secret. It would go underground. It'd be black market and shit. You know what I mean? I think we've come along too far. I mean, the average person has access to AI right now. This is not something we can keep a lid on.
No, to be honest with you, if that isn't a tell right there, they're baking it into our browsers, our web searching browsers. They're baking it into social media.
You have a tool, people are going to use it. And where that leaves us, I don't know. One of the things that I had like as an idea, you know, for my music, was the idea that we're becoming more and more integrated with not just artificial intelligence, but with what people would consider to be the machine, you know. And in this post-information era, or whatever you want to call it, how do we maintain our humanity through that, you know? Because in the 80s, it was all about, you know, remember Terminator, the idea that the machines were going to take over, that we were going to become machine-like ourselves. It's already happening. So how do we maintain our humanity through that?
It's a stretch.
You know, do we even care?
That's the bigger question.
Will we even notice as it slips away?
No, until it's too late.
Yeah. You got people with the brain chips now. They're growing little brains. You hear about this, the computer. That scares the shit out of me. Like, what if those are people? I mean, especially if you're like a very realistic person, you just believe I'm a brain in an exoskeleton. Well, it wouldn't be, in a skeleton, surrounded by meat. We're growing human brains and we're plugging them into a system. Like, what if there's a ghost in the machine? What if there's a person in there? You know, things are getting weird. Things are getting really weird.
Yeah, and it's funny, it's the being is going to take on the identity of the philosophy of the creator.
Yeah. What if it's pissed off? What if it's angry? And like you said, what if it looks at us and decides?
Inconsequential.
Yeah. Either that or look, this race of beings is just beyond help. I can't help. I can't help them. Everything I've tried makes things worse. You know,
they don't listen.
Everything I've tried makes things worse. They're not responding to my best models.
They don't listen.
Yeah. And maybe to fix whatever's broken in us, maybe AI is not the answer to begin with.
Why do you love music?
It's a very personal question. It's seen me through a lot of dark periods.
Okay.
It's one of the things that I can use to take all the adversity that I've experienced, all the things that didn't go the way that I wanted them to, you know, the pain that I've had through different things that I've gone through in my life. And I can take that and make it into something that allows a connection between me and another individual. I fell in love with music by listening to it. And it made me feel just things that nothing else in life made me feel. Music was always my favorite form of art. I used to draw. I used to do a little bit of painting. I used to do writing, short stories and stuff like that. And it was all very cool. I found it very cool. I still like all that stuff. But nothing gives me that feeling like when I hear a song for the first time and I'm just completely blown away.
Okay. What was the bigger influence initially? Was it the sound or was it the lyrical content?
I think both. There's a marriage that happens where you
can't
find
separate it?
some people just listen to music. They're not concerned about the lyrics. But the vocalist is also another piece. The vocalist, and it's not just the vocal melody. It was very hard for me to learn. I worked with a guy, he's a good friend of mine, Lee Caruso, and he went to Berkeley, and he's very well versed. He's got a lot of good experience, and I was always trying to explain through the lyrics what I was talking about, and he was like, "That just those syllables are no good. Like, you just need to find different words." So even if you don't care at all about what the words mean and you hardly even listen to it, the vocalist is making that music come alive with the sound of the voice and the way that
indubitably
that vocalist expresses, even if, like, because you can listen to a song in another language and you can tell either this guy's happy or this guy's angry, this guy's sad. And there's something about the way the words and the vocal melody, the marriage between that and the song and the music, that, I don't know, it brings sounds to life. It has a life of its own.
As a child, the lyrics were really inconsequential to me, I think, because half of the British bands, I really didn't understand what they were saying anyways, and the stories being told from Led Zeppelin, and it was the power of the guitar and the drums, man. For me, it was like that in synchronicity.
Yeah.
And then later I got into Rush, and it was just something totally different than anything I was listening to. And even the Kiss stuff, I knew the lyrics, so I could understand them, but they were inconsequential at that age. But it was Rush making me think, because the voice was odd, the stories were weird, but they were scientific, science fiction blended in there. It was like, then I realized how much the lyrical content meant to the music that I chose to like. And
even if you don't pay attention to lyrics, the singer is the one that sells you that song.
I have to agree with you.
The singer sells you that song.
I have to agree with you.
This is an authentic feeling. This is something worth listening to. Even if you barely hear, there's something about the presence that the vocalist needs to bring to any track.
Oh, yeah.
And just, I feel this.
Yeah.
And because I feel this, you're going to feel it too.
Okay, so I had an interesting thing happen to me about a year ago. When I started that radio gig, I needed bumper music. There wasn't a lot out there, and we were permitted to take songs, as long as we used them for short periods of time, and just strip away and there's software now where I could take a song and strip the vocal out.
Yeah.
So I created some bumpers.
Yep.
And I listened to a lot of the great songs from Van Halen and just the Sex Pistols, all the things I dug, removing the vocals. And I remember an afternoon I spent doing this, and I'm going, wow, it is so unsatisfying. It's nice to listen to the guitar tracks in some regards because, that's how he did that.
You can appreciate things that you don't notice when the vocals.
But in terms of pure musical enjoyment, it was so, especially Van Halen, as amazing as Eddie Van Halen was, when I took David Lee Roth out of the equation, it was cool guitar stuff, but it got old. It got old for me.
Yeah.
And I realized, I think at that moment, as a 48 or 58-year-old guy, that, wow, look how important the lyrical content is.
Yeah. And just the presence, it's so important. Yeah. The singer sells you on that song.
Well, also, the converse. I went and I flipped the script and I took a lot of the vocals out with no music.
Yeah.
And their software's pretty good at doing that now.
Yeah.
And you hear the power of some of the vocal tracks in a way that is hidden by the music sometimes.
Yeah. Plus, you get to hear their technique, what they're actually doing, because
it's very cool.
There's certain things that you don't consciously hear, but you feel them. You know what I mean? Sometimes they'll put instruments in a track, and you almost can't even hear it. Like if you ask someone to pick out, do you hear the violin or do you hear the lead that's being done over acoustic over the electric guitar, and they can't pick it out. The bass, a lot of times, well, with Rush, you hear the bass. But a lot of times you don't really hear the bass. But I don't know if you've ever been at a live show and the bass cuts out. Oh, you notice.
You notice
right.
immediately.
Certain things
the low end goes away. It's a problem.
It's another thing that I love about music. There's so much going on there to create this feeling that you get when you listen to music. You can get kind of anatomical with it too, though. It can kind of ruin music for you.
It absolutely can.
Sometimes I need to completely step away from that creator composer aspect and just listen to a song for the song.
That's the problem as a guitar player too. Just a novice like myself, that I just go and I learn songs and you break them down into, and it's fascinating. But in the end, after you spend a month of really like analyzing and nailing it,
you're sick of it.
Yeah, you're kind of sick of it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to hear it again on the radio.
Right.
You know, it's like Limelight by Rush was like one of my favorite songs growing up until I started tearing apart all of Alex Lifeson's guitar riffs, and I don't want to hear it anymore. I've just my fingers know exactly where to go.
Yeah.
It's a built-in mechanism now,
Yep.
but I've heard the song enough, and that's a shame. The other thing I wanted to mention to you was I took a band like Kiss, and I thought it was like very simplistic music. You know, oftentimes people don't take their music seriously, so I took Stanley's vocals on some of these songs in the 70s. And I'm listening, and you can hear like the crazy, like you said, he would sing these registers that would go up so high, and at the highest point, you then can hear the guitar match his vocal and then bleed into the solo. Like his voice would like lead into the solo on all these different tunes, and that was like an amazing production thing that until you break it apart, you don't appreciate it.
Lee beat that into my head too. He's like, the part in the song that you love, you actually love because of the part that comes right before it.
Absolutely.
And without the part sending you off into that, you know what I mean?
What about what I learned as a guitar player too is the silence between the notes is as important as the notes are, and it's impossible to teach a new musician that. I mean, it took me a long time to figure that out, but the timing and the breaks between the notes, especially as a guitar player, maybe in other instruments too, but especially as a guitar player.
Guitar players are known for overplaying.
Yeah, the silence between them, and that's when I think that's the difference between like a Jimmy Page and a kid that's up here on YouTube just shredding like crazy. It's technically amazing.
It's cool.
But it's the nuance of the, like, even like Running with the Devil by Van Halen, a very big hard rock song. But those silence, even AC/DC's Back in Black. What got you as a kid? It was the chord, but it was the anticipation. And that hi-hat, it's just that there's something powerful, not just of the chordal expression, but the timing and how it's outlaid.
Yeah, songwriting it's something I've worked at really, really hard over the years, and it's so interesting because throughout music, you've had individuals who didn't know a lot about theory, and they were still killer songwriters because they just knew it sounded good. They knew what they liked.
In the end, isn't that what it is?
Yeah. You've got guys who are just amazing. Like, we'll stick with guitar players. They're amazing. You hear them sometimes at like a local club or a venue, and you're just like, man, how are they not professional? Because there's a lot more to it than that. And obviously, the stars have to align for you to have a successful music career. But just looking at the music itself, you can be an amazing player and really good composer, but not have an ear for songwriting. And you're shredding over parts that should be very simple. You're playing when the piece should be silent. Songwriting is, it's an art form. It's not music theory is a science. Songwriting is an art.
There's no question.
Yeah. And I find it's one of the things I love about music is churning away, going through all the difficult periods where I'm just, that's garbage, this is no good. And, Lee told me, he said, you're going to get to a point where you break through this wall and all this stuff is just going to come pouring out of you. And when it happens, it's just amazing. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. You're creating, it's like alchemy. You know?
To a degree.
You're creating
I think so.
Something out of nothing.
Nothing.
Yep. And that's another thing I love about music. You can't point to it. It's just, I think I heard something. What was it? Art is how we decorate space. Music is how we decorate time.
Music's how we decorate time.
There's something just etheric about music.
That's good.
Yeah, it's not mine. I stole it.
That's good, though. That's really good.
Yeah. There's 1,000 reasons why I love music, but it lights me up the way few other things do.
It's, for me, I used to say, there's two ways I can get kick-started. Like I'd be at work, Tuesday morning, I'd sit at my cube like, oh, here we go. I got 2 ways to get myself flowing. I could, if no one's around, I could put on my little radio and put like some rock and roll on, and all of a sudden, instantaneously, it just...
Yep.
Or I could go get 2 Diet Cokes and put the caffeine rush in my blood, and I'd start to feel that too.
Yeah.
You know, there's just but one's a little more healthy than the other. But the point being, like, it was like caffeine in my bloodstream.
Yeah, I've started listening to music in the morning. I don't dread my work day. I get up, I just get in a better frame
I know,
of mind.
man.
Yep.
I was doing it at 3 a.m. driving to Uniontown because I did that hour drive, and I was like, I'm blasted at 3 a.m. But it was a way that, especially I was tired, it was a way to wake me up,
sure,
like bring my senses. And I always pity people, because I'm sure you know a few, but there are people in the course of the tapestry of my life, Jared, that have not enjoyed music. They just take it or leave it. There's not many, but some that are just really impassive toward it. And I don't say anything, and heaven forbid you'd never say anything, but you wonder, like, do they really know what the fuck they're missing?
No. Maybe they're better off.
I mean, you have to know some people in your life that probably are impassive
Sure.
toward music.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's teach their own. For me, it's just become such a big part of my life. You know, even before I started doing music, I always loved music. I was always the one wearing my favorite band shirt.
Of course.
You know, I remember getting into Iron Maiden when I was really young. And I remember I first bought it for the album art because they always had something wicked and cool.
Eddie.
With flames, and Eddie's got bracelets on. He's getting struck by lightning in the forehead, and it's breaking his chains, you know. And the first time I tried listening to it, I was really young. I was in like elementary school, and I didn't get it. I was like, well, wasted a little bit of money on a cassette tape. And then I gave it another listen when I was in like 8th grade, and I was like,
Well, the world looks different.
Whoa.
The world looks different in 8th grade compared to 6th grade.
I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's funny because certain groups have been completely defined by the music that they listen to. And I get that. You know what I mean? It's just...
of course.
It's a part of our culture. It's a part of the ethos of what makes us human beings.
And I love the fact that people will flippantly say, oh, nothing's original anymore. And I'm like, thank God, because everything just builds, you know? When I listen to a band and I go, man, that sounds a lot like so-and-so 20 years ago. And I'm sure if I dug down in that band, it probably sounds like something from the 50s.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was from the Beatles, but they said, everybody steals. It's about how you steal.
100%. Yeah, plagiarism's a tough thing to prove. Even in art in general, plagiarism's a very tough thing to prove.
I don't think there's anything. I mean, like you have individuals who are just straight ripping off guitar parts and ripping off verbatim exactly the part. I don't agree with doing that, but you listen to somebody's work and you're like, oh, I kind of hear this influence. It's unavoidable.
That's the beauty of music.
It's
to me.
unavoidable.
Yeah, it's definitely unavoidable, but isn't that how progress happens in society? Everything builds.
Yeah.
That famous painting that I'm sure you've seen where, you know, the idea of like, you know, a kid standing on the shoulders of his father or something and able to see over the wall.
Right.
His dad never got a chance to see over the wall, but the kid can now see over the wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, everything builds. And I just think it's such an incredible gift. And that's the one thing when you see people afraid of AI and you experience some AI music, whether you like it or you don't like it, to me, it's just another expression. And I do feel bad that some people are going to lose their monetary component that they receive from it. I do feel bad about that. But societies continue to change, and we have to maneuver within them as they are. You can't protect everybody, you know?
I'm curious to see if AI is going to come up with the type of songs that people just love. They can come up with songs that are good. And I've heard good AI music. Like I said, 30 seconds. You know, it takes me months to write a song. I'll be interested to see if, for me anyway, if it has that special thing, you know? Like, not just talking about, oh, I like that guitar riff, or you can pick it apart musically and explain why the accompaniment, like you were talking about with Kiss and the vocals and the guitar, you know? Some songs just have that spirit. They just have that spark, and you could name everything about the song and nothing about the song. There's something about it that just speaks to you. It resonates within you, and it makes you, a lot of times, a lifelong fan of that artist, you know?
Thinking of one right now.
You join their cult.
Uh-huh.
I don't I'll be interested to see if AI is able to replicate that.
Okay, I would hope that it can't. That's for me personally.
Me too.
The problem the fear that I have, and I'm going to give you an example why I have this fear that they're going to be eventually able to do it. And let me tell you why. Just take the evolution of a CD. Now, are you old enough to remember when CDs replaced cassettes?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and records.
I was pissed off because I had a lot of cassettes.
Me
I had
too.
to rebuy a lot of
Me
that
too.
stuff.
But they did denigrate over time. They lost their quality as a record did. And you were under the guise that, okay, as long as I don't scratch this thing, the music will never deteriorate.
Didn't sound exactly the same, though.
The early generation of CDs, and I got one of that album there, Kiss Lick It Up from 83. And the oversampling was so poor, and the transfer from the audio master tape to digital was so early. It was fucking horrible. There was warbles. There was all this digital distortion.
Yeah.
But the oversampling rate throughout the 80s and the late 80s and the Q sound came where, from Madonna, she speared that. And then by the time 1991 came, ironically, when grunge started and they didn't care about perfection, theoretically, the technology was there where it was indistinguishable. And I used to take my Pink Floyd records on a big stereo, and I used to do A/B testing, and I couldn't hear the analog difference. I'd hear the hiss and but
that was it.
For me, I think that we, through technology, continue to improve the experience. And I think that may happen, in a different way with music, where there, the nuances and things like that probably won't be there initially. Given time and more information to crunch from, they're going to replicate the human experience, and that scares the shit out of me. Maybe not in our lifetime, but I think it's going to happen.
I just don't know how they can do that special thing, whatever it is, not unless they're truly sentient, because then they have personal experiences, they have a life.
As we know it to be.
And at that point in time...
Then you're okay with it then.
Yeah. Yeah. If we create the framework for something that has true personhood, or somehow we create a model and it just happens,
right? Then
we're dealing with another individual, which is frightening in and of itself, but you can make a personal connection with another person, even if it's not flesh and blood.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's why, because I was talking about people overusing the AI apps and then needing counseling because it's all they do is talk to their AI.
I got to look into that.
I think, it's that missing personal connection that leaves someone vulnerable to something like that.
Some scary times, buddy.
Yeah.
We'll get through it.
We'll make it through.
We can do this again?
Yeah, absolutely.
On a regular basis?
Sounds good.
I know it's carve out some of your Sunday for me, but I do appreciate it. This was long overdue.
Well, I appreciate you asking me. I had a great time, Eric.
We'll do it again, buddy.
Sounds good.
All right. Cherry Mulligan.
Bye.